Hello again. It's the CyberDudes podcast. Specifically, it's the CyberDudes news. I am Robin Thornton. He, once again, is Omar Sangarima. How are you,
Hi.
Omar?
Good. Happy to be here.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, so the reason I say the CyberDudes news is because a few episodes ago we did say that we were going to start trying to go to weekly on the news, and this is the fruition of that. Partly because we also realise that if we record episodes in segments, it's a little bit less daunting for us, and specifically me with the editing. And we can stay more closely to the news cycle. When we were doing it every 2 weeks, it's kind of there's a lot of lag. There's a lot happens in 2 weeks in the cyberspace area. So going to weekly means that we can be a little bit more current and hopefully a little bit less verbose when it comes to the news segment, because episode 10 really ran over quite significantly, didn't it?
It was a fun one.
There was just too much to talk about.
Yep.
That whole episode actually, end to end, ended up being, I think, about an hour and 50. So yeah, it's quite a lot.
You're
Anyway,
welcome.
right, we'll go with the news. This is everything from 1st of September up to the 8th, and we start with a few quickfire headlines. Google searches are becoming a bigger target of cyber criminals with the rise of malvertising, essentially malicious advertising. That's an article from CNBC. Real learning there is basically don't trust all the adverts that you see on Google. It's a very big machine, and they have proven relatively incapable of keeping 100% of malicious stuff out when it comes to poisoned advertising. Next headline, US indicts 2 Russia Today employees for alleged Russian disinformation effort. That's something from Recorded Future.
That's a House of Cards. That truly is a House of Cards headline, in my opinion. If you think about it, scary.
Yeah, true. And finally, staying on the disinformation theme, spamouflage trolls. I like that word. Spamouflage trolls pretend to be American patriots on X and TikTok ahead of US presidential election. That's from the Register. I'm not in the slightest bit surprised by this. I've often thought it's really easy to just copy and paste banal patriotic rhetoric and make yourself seem like you're actually a legitimate individual.
It's
So
a
hey,
very low bar,
it
I'll
is
say.
really a low bar. It's just a lot of it's just asinine.
Yeah,
But hey,
really
never
is.
mind. Right, we got some short stories, or we got a short segment for a quick fire on a couple of stories. Omar, what have you got for us for that pod?
So for that part, first and foremost, North Korean threat actors deploy covert catch malware via LinkedIn job scams. And as anyone who hangs out with me for more than 5 minutes knows, I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. So this one hit very close to home. There's a lot of
Are you always
activities.
delighted to announce and
I'm
or
delighted,
thrilled to
thrilled
announce?
to share. Right? It's just the oh man. I mean,
Truly privileged
they
to
they
work
fired
with.
they fired their content team and just have us essentially creating content. Like it's a beautiful play for trying to just suck money out of an entity. But what gets me is that a lot of the activities described in this article, which I'll get into, I do. So I really like, hey, if I'll get into it. So essentially, there's North Korea figured out, man, they've been busy with a lot of the bamboozling lately. I feel like their social engineering chops have ticked upwards a bit. I'll just leave it at that,
Yeah.
especially after the know before kerfuffle. But essentially, you get hit up by some recruiters, quote unquote. I'm doing air quotes for the folks that are just listening to us,
Hmm.
or recruiting agencies, same intonations, the same air quotes, and they hit you with, here, take a look at this job spec, or I have a perfect role for you based on your amazing LinkedIn profile. So to go with the same sort of, I'm delighted to
Hmm.
announce, it's a very canned sort of conversation on that platform. You click it, and lo and behold, the horse is out of the barn. You've created a vector through which they start deploying other goodies on your system. And before you know it,
Joy.
Bob's your uncle, and your whole thing is completely pwned, and you're now essentially an information gathering node for the good old Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
Which is decidedly undemocratic.
It's not even in the name. When I went there, it was always a little chuckle that I would hide because there was people holding AK-47s that would get very angry if I laughed at anything having to do with the great leader or his son, who is the current despot in charge of that small country. Now, what gets me here is, again, the social engineering aspects of it.
Yep.
You get hit up. LinkedIn is a place that you want to advertise to get hit up for jobs. The job market is a little funny. I don't know what the hell it's doing lately in cyber as well as in other areas, and holy moly, you can get owned pretty quickly. One of the things that jumped out here was, in a specific example, was they're targeting devs with, hey, get this coding challenge knocked out, and we'll take a peek at you. And lo and behold, it is a zip file that contains the covert catch malware, which is an entry vector for downloading all sorts of nastiness on your systems and anything your networks to. Robin, what's your take here?
Oh, just all fun stuff. Honestly, I mean, job advert pieces is really getting old for me. At least I
Yep.
keep getting text messages about that, and obviously, as we've said on previous episodes, you get the text message, and they try to move it onto WhatsApp, and that's really red flag number one. The reason they try and move it on WhatsApp being it's free for them, whereas texting is not. So, hey, tales all the time, but yep, just ending up as a tool of Pyongyang potentially.
Not where you want to be, ever.
No. All right. Well, moving on to one of Kim Jong Un's friends, but not so friendly friends. Russia's most notorious special forces unit now has its own cyber warfare team. Apparently, the KGB long since gone, but
But not
evolved.
forgotten. Yeah.
Yeah, but evolved now into several different, equally sinister agencies. The FSB being, I believe, the Internal Intelligence. GRU is their military intelligence arm, and they have been affiliated with much of Russia's cyber warfare fuckery that they have been involved in the last sort of decade or so. And it would appear that the GRU long have the Russians maintained a position of distancing themselves organizationally from hacking groups, largely for the reasons of plausible deniability. But it does appear that GRU has its own unit which seemingly it uses as part of its physical warfare activities, effectively a leader or a leading operation, bit of an advanced scouting party in the digital space in order to bring down infrastructure and communications for wherever it is that they are perpetrating their physical acts. Actually appears that this has been, I mean, it's a reasonably new discovery according to Wired, but the links do go as far back as 2018 and potentially even further, because there's links to the attempted Novichok poisoning or attempted Novichok-based assassination of Sergei Skripal in Salisbury in the UK.
In your backyard, man.
In our backyard. The Foreign Office and the MOD were not happy about that. Yeah, and that actually, it didn't even get Skripal or his daughter, who were the intended targets. It did kill an unintended bystander. So yes, naughty Kremlin. Okay, we're going to dive somewhat deeper into two more stories before we round out the segment. So Omar, what have you got for your long format?
So this is something that I think it's one of those stories that goes back and forth all the time, where there's a cyber talent shortage. What do you do? Should you get certs? Should you get education? Should you get skills? I'm excited that finally it's something that the White House is taking action on, because this is, as you've noted, cyber talent has an impact on the world stage, has an impact in geoglobal politics. There's no place where you want to be lacking in firepower on this crucial of a set of capabilities. So the White House is coming in and saying, listen, the gap is there. Obviously, current solutions aren't solutioning. The classic, you go to school, you get a comp sci degree, then you go out there and get
Mhm.
a cyber job. What I love is that there's also a head nod from the administration, from the White House, and I think from the industry in general going, yeah, that's not working. Maybe skills-based hiring and skills-based pipelines could offer the way to go. This is a very near and dear to my heart story because it's something I know we're trying to do at our place of business
Yeah.
where we're trying to go the apprenticeship route. We're trying to show interns a new way to get in. And I'm very glad that we're leading by example in that regard because this entire story is basically the White House's attempt to foster those sorts of alternative pipelines that don't necessarily mean you have to go to 4 years of school and then maybe 1 or 2 years of a specialization
Mm.
and then you're ready to start getting experience in a field that, as we both know, is so crucially based on experiential knowledge and
Yeah.
information and insights that you gain just from being in the seat, regardless of what you're doing. As well as, I loved that the article goes into we're not letting in a ton of folks with alternative backgrounds that could be beautiful perspectives
Yeah.
and blossom the where our industry is currently lacking in terms of skills or viewpoints or effectiveness. Robin, what's your take?
I mean, I think Andy said it very aptly in the last episode that we did, and if you didn't see that, go back through the channel, look for episode 10, because Andy Kazishin is a veteran of incident response, digital forensics, a very technical guy, and yes, went the college route, but didn't go to college for knowing specifically that he wanted to do cyber. So he did that at the tail end, and came in green to our, or relatively green to our workplace 15 years ago. But he hires on a similar sort of logic, in that his ethos being, I don't care about your academic or theoretical knowledge background, whatever. Show me that you can do the do. He says, I'll take someone without a college degree if they can demonstrate, if they can show me a really good, robust set, portfolio of practical work that they have done, right? He
Mhm.
doesn't care about the theory behind it necessarily. You got to be able to work in the real world, not in the academic, you know, theoretical space of cyber.
Also, one aspect of this that I wanted to make sure we foot stomped was the fact that the White House's initiative also brings much needed focus to creating a pipeline for neurodivergent candidates, which I
Mm,
think is freaking phenomenal, as well as including those that are blind or otherwise impaired. They can do the damn thing. If they can, we want them. We need the skills. Bring them in because, good Lord, there is a talent gap, and this is finally an alternative way to solve that problem.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think about it from that perspective. At the end of the day, it comes down to, from a neurodivergent perspective, there can be challenges with, well, it depends on which part of it you are, but there can be challenges with structure, working patterns, working time. But at the end of the day, there's one of these things where, as long as you are getting the work done, and especially again sometimes with the neurodivergent piece, it's a case of a cyber investigation, for instance. It doesn't work to the standard hours, the standard set 9 to 5. It ends up being one of those things where it's like, this is a problem, it needs solving now. And there's a good cross section of neurodivergent folks who will just go straight, hyper focus, go straight through a problem no matter what time of day it is,
Mm-hmm.
because it's something that they go, I need to solve this for my own satisfaction. So
Mm-hmm.
it does work there, and yeah, I think it's probably one of those industries where it probably does lend itself reasonably well to the neurodivergent type.
For sure.
Okay, right. I will finish off with, this is one of the wilder stories of professional or unprofessional negligence,
Malfeasance.
misconduct, just holy shit, what are you doing, Ingness? This is from the Navy Times. How Navy chiefs conspired to get themselves illegal warship Wi-Fi. This is absolutely mental.
It's bonkers.
So, US Navy chiefs aboard the literal class USS Manchester, which is a sort of a small-ish, short-range, pseudo-stealth frigate.
But it's a warship, right? I want to put stuff that piece.
But a warship. I mean, only a crew of 53 has a mission, can have a mission crew of an additional 35, but in excess of 15 chiefs aboard this ship. So in senior enlisted seamen, not necessarily the officers, the commissioned officers that command the ship, but they deployed an unsanctioned Starlink, i.e., Elon Musk, get it wherever you want internet via satellite, Starlink satellite connection, which compromised the operational security of this warship, all for the purposes of things like checking sports scores, texting with family members, and streaming movies. There's a privilege afforded only to the select members of the select enlisted members of the crew, with nobody else deriving any benefit from the system, from this system that put their lives in danger. And the reason that obviously this is a bad thing. There's a lot of electronic warfare equipment on one of these warships that is set up specifically for the purposes of obfuscating its
Where you're coming
position,
from.
existence, its communications in any way, shape, or form, and to have an unknown to command.
Almost enterprise level connection, right?
Well,
This is a pretty
well,
well.
it's
Look,
more just
I'm looking at the
it's
I'm looking at
available
the
just
picture,
to your common person, though.
but it's a robust connection, and I'm looking at the picture of what they had to do to make it work. That one top-down photo
Yeah.
of affixing the damn receiving dish to the outside of a fucking warship, and
Well,
you
what
had to
get
do it. Oh,
so
Christ.
this is what gets me most about this. I mean, so my point being, this is a commercial piece of tech. This is not military grade. This is
It's not
not
hardened. Yeah.
it's not hardened in that sort of regard or respect. And what gets me here is that yes, they affixed it to the weather deck just above the bridge and below the radar tower, and the commissioned officers, the commander of the ship, apparently did not know about this and allowed himself to be lied to repeatedly by Senior Chief Griselle Marrero, who's the woman who had set this up, allegedly had done it in such a way where the whole system could only be controlled by the Starlink app on her own phone, and she would put in the password herself for the Wi-Fi network named Stinky. She would put in the password herself on the devices of anybody who wanted to use it. It's absolutely mental, but they paid $2,800 for this high performance kit with a personal credit card. They've got Starlink has plans that range from $90 to $5,000 a month. She set up this entire payment structure for all of these guys, and when they found out, they installed this in March of 2023. When they realized on the way from San Diego to Pearl Harbor that not all areas of the ship actually got the signal because there wasn't enough range, when they were in Pearl Harbor, they grabbed a load of cable and repeaters to extend all of the signal. And this is genuinely mental. This is a massive scandal for the US Navy. The fact that anybody got away with this even for more than a few days.
But then
Never mind 2 months.
My favorite part is when, at least for me, when she goes, "Yeah, this is for morale," and then the court-martial judgment states, "But that wasn't the case because you only had it for a select few of the chiefs. So not any of the commissioned officers, not any of the lowly sailors. You had it for an elite group of folks, number one. Number two, she was uniquely skilled through skills she gained while in the Navy's employ to be able to carry out something of this magnitude and complexity from an IT perspective, where it was only her running it. It was relatively under the radar, literally under the radar, as you stated. And the third thing that gets me There was people that were trying to put in a suggestion box on the ship, hey, you might want to take a look at this rogue Wi-Fi setup that we got on what should be a freaking clandestine instrument of war. Maybe you should do something. She physically goes and takes the suggestion out of the damn suggestion box just to hide her tracks for a couple more weeks. I just can't. It's so much work. What are you doing?
I'm really astonished at what point at any point during this, at what point you think that this is a good idea and that you're gonna get away with it, because it's only gonna last for a short while,
Sure.
and you will get found out eventually. When you get found out, you are gonna get fucked, and she did. She got demoted twice. She'll never move up again through the
No,
ranks. That's
her
it.
career's
Career's
toast.
career's
Yeah.
done. But yeah, this is absolutely nuts. And then rounding off with this is a cybersecurity podcast that we do here. This is a military navy story, but here's the real proper cyber angle on this one. The operational security piece of that bad OPSEC is what gets hackers sprung. This ship was getting deployed in the Western Pacific, where there is significant potential for coming into contact with Chinese surveillance and surveillance of other nations not necessarily friendly to the United States. This ship would stand out like a sore fucking thumb.
I would imagine really quickly, I would almost imagine Chinese intelligence or counterintelligence folks going, no way, this has to be a honeypot.
It's gonna be a hoax.
There's no way anyone installs a Starlink device on a warship. But wait, oh, there was a way.
And not least a warship that is designed specifically to have a smaller cross section than your average.
It was absolutely. It was meant to be as inconspicuous as possible and ping as little as possible while still being operational. And she went and put essentially a giant beacon on this
Mhm.
thing's outer hull there area. And just I can't. I kept reading Robin and going, no way, no way. There's nothing that tops it. And then the next paragraph would give me more nonsense, and I kept giggling the entire time.
Yep. And on that bombshell, yeah, basically, if you're trying to hide your warship on the open seas, don't paint it in the communication equivalent of clown makeup, because it'll stand out just like a sore thumb. That is our news segment for this week. We'll be back again next week with a full episode. So news, feature, certification corner, and then the week after that. So we'll alternate every other week. Short, long, short, long, short, long.
You're
But
getting news. You're getting news every week.
news
We
every
promise.
week. We're gonna try. Anywho, that's that for today, and yeah, we'll see you again next week.
So long.